Warren Buffett just made a huge bet on the housing market. At the same time, Dave Ramsey is saying right now is a great time to buy a home. And self-made millionaire Barbara Corcoran is saying that home prices are about to explode as mortgage rates drop. Now, this is coming at a time when we have elevated home prices, mortgage rates are sitting at the highest level we've seen in 23 years, purchase applications are sitting at levels we haven't seen since the mid-1990s, and the Fed has yet to give us any definitive answer on whether or not they're going to continue to hike rates. So the question is, should you buy now or should you wait? So when you have big names out there like Warren Buffett, Dave Ramsey, and Barbara Corcoran backing the housing industry, is that something that you should pay attention to and jump on board, or should you just wait to see what happens? Well, that's actually what we're going to dive into in today's video. We're going to talk about why they're talking about now being the best time. We're going to talk about why Warren Buffett is betting on the housing market. But before we dive into any of that, I'd like to take a minute and ask a favor. If you find any value in my videos at all, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up. Also, feel free to subscribe to the channel to stay updated on everything real estate related. So Warren Buffett just bet big on home builders, and that's primarily due to a shortage in existing home inventory, which is essentially elevated home builders across the country. And that's exactly why Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway just disclosed that they invested $814 million backing 3 different home builders. The idea is that because existing home sales have more or less collapsed, currently sitting somewhere around 4 million homes on a seasonally adjusted basis and down nearly 16.6% year over year, there's just less property out there for home buyers to buy. So Berkshire Hathaway is betting on the idea that home builders are going to continue to benefit because they make up such a large majority of the available property out there for buyers to choose from. New home sales in June were up 23.8% year over year, while at the same time existing home sales were down nearly 19% during that same period of time. And the primary reason for that is because a lot of potential sellers out there that would consider selling their home have essentially been locked into their current interest rate. A lot of these people either bought during the pandemic and have a 2.5%, 3.5% rate, or they owned prior to that period of time and were able to refinance into a much lower rate. So looking at the market now, if those people were to sell their homes, not only would they be buying a more expensive piece of real estate, because most buyers move up when they sell a home, they sell something and buy something more expensive, but they'd also be financing that property at a higher rate, which also means higher taxes. So overall, it's a much more expensive move. And because of that, sellers have decided not to put their homes on the market. And in turn, a lot of people have transitioned into new homes because new construction was so plentiful towards the end of 2022. In fact, there were a lot of people out there calling for a crash in the housing market because all of the new construction that was available. Well, what happened in turn was because of the lack of existing homes on the market, buyers transitioned to those new construction properties, not only keeping prices stable, but taking those homes off the market. And that's likely caused a bottom in new home sales, and exactly why they seem to be holding up a little bit better than existing home sales. On top of that, builders have various tools that they can offer buyers in order to entice them to buy their homes. Doing things like builder credits, offering upgrades, offering buy downs on the mortgage rate, something like a 3-2-1 buy down, where if you have a 7% interest rate, the first year sitting at 4%, the second year at 5%, the third year at 6%, and then the fourth year, interest rates would move back up to that 7%. So in turn, buyers have a few years to get accustomed to a higher monthly payment. Or if things move the way I think they're going to move and mortgage rates come back down, those people will have an opportunity to refinance into a lower rate before they ever see that 7% mortgage. So for new homes at the moment, we're currently sitting around 4.5 months of homes that are currently under construction. These are properties that aren't finished building yet. Now, while this number is a bit elevated, it looks to be declining. Now, a lot of these homes aren't finished because we've had supply constraints, we've had things change out there in the market during the pandemic that delayed the completion date of these properties. So at the moment, there's only 1.3 months of homes that are actually completed out there in the market, which when you're looking at the big picture is a really, really low number. So even though new construction is getting a lot of attention and people are transitioning that way, please understand that home builders still need to build about 4 to 6 million homes in order to keep up with supply. And that's primarily due to demographics and the lack of building over the last 10 years. So builders are finally starting to see the writing on the wall with regards to low inventory out there in the market. And that's exactly why Warren Buffett is betting on them, because he sees that that's the only real opportunity out there in the market to create any real change. So why is Dave Ramsey and Barbara Corcoran both saying that right now is a really good time to buy? With elevated rates, with housing prices sitting near record highs, what makes right now the best time with all of those things, with housing affordability at such low levels? Well, it really comes down to the idea that you're not going to really see an improvement in those fundamentals anytime soon. If you take a look at this chart here, this is weekly inventory going back to about 2015. Now, I drew a red line on this chart to give you an idea of where inventory would be if we had a more reasonable decline. But going back to those numbers at the top of the trend line there, those were more normal times in the market where buyers and sellers were more or less equal in the market. One didn't really have an advantage over the other because we had plenty of inventory. We had housing affordability at a place where a lot more able buyers were able to take advantage of the market. So you can see from that chart, these times are anything but normal. And here's the bad part. We're about to see inventory move even lower. And that's partly due to seasonality in the market. As you can see from that chart I posted a moment ago, every single year about this time, you see the peak in inventory, and then inventory starts to trend down through the end of the year. This year is not likely to be any different. But what is likely to be a little bit different is we have elevated rates this year. Interest rates at the highest level we've seen since really November of last year, which is not only keeping demand down, but it's also keeping inventory down because it's locking people into their homes. Now, there is this belief out there that as interest rates come down, inventory is going to grow. And yes, inventory is going to grow. People are going to put their homes on the market, but you're not likely to see any meaningful increase in inventory. And the reason I believe that is because most sellers are also buyers. People don't sell their homes and decide to go rent. They usually sell that home and buy something else, which, going back to what I said a moment ago about Warren Buffett betting on the builders, with builders being the only real solution, that is exactly where I'm coming from when I say that. So let's use that same idea that interest rates come down, more people put their homes on the market because, now they're at a point where the payment looks a bit more reasonable on the purchase that they're going to make. But also understand what happens during that period of time. As rates come down, all of those home buyers that have been sitting on the fence, they now come out of the woodwork and come back into the market, creating more competition, in turn keeping prices at least flat, if not pushing them higher. So when Barbara Corcoran says she believes home prices are going to explode as mortgage rates come down, that's because she believes that there's a lot of willing home buyers sitting on the sidelines and ready to jump in as soon as they become able home buyers as interest rates decline. Now, I know what a lot of people out there are saying.
Jeb, you're just a real estate agent. You're just pushing people to buy homes so that you make a commission.
Please understand, the majority of people watching this video don't use Jeb to buy a home. So there's really no net benefit to Jeb. The only real benefit to Jeb is educating home buyers, right? That's the goal of the channel, is to help people understand what's actually happening out there in the market so you can make the best decisions for yourself. And if I'm being honest with you, I don't want to see home prices continue to increase year over year. In fact, last year kind of made a similar statement. I would like home prices to move flat, maybe even down slightly, not only to improve housing affordability, but to give more people an opportunity to become home buyers. But here's the thing, I don't really see a solution anytime soon. So if you're somebody sitting on the sidelines wondering whether right now is the right time, that's a question you have to ask yourself. Is it the right time in your life? Do you have money for a down payment? Do you have savings? Are you comfortable with the payment being quoted? And more importantly, do you have a longer term time horizon? As these are the things that I would be thinking about if I were considering purchasing a home right now. I often tell the story about me buying my home that I currently own back in 2012. Now, this wasn't the first home I bought, but it's the house that I live in at the moment. And the reason I purchased that home is because my wife and I had just gotten married. We had just had our first kid, and it was that time in our life. It was the right time in our life. We wanted to have more kids. We wanted to have more space for the kids to run around, and it was just the right move. And if I'm being completely transparent, I wasn't really on board with the situation. She was kind of pushing me more than I was because I had been through the housing crash, and I was at a point when I was trying to rebuild and do other things, but I also realized that she was right. It was the right time in our life. And so we made that investment into a piece of property that we live in today. And because of that, we not only fixed our costs, but we've seen prices rise, we've seen rents rise, and we're now in a completely different situation. So with that, if you're thinking about buying a property, those are the things that you should think about. But if you're someone just starting the process and not sure where to start, I created a first-time homebuyer course right here to guide you through that process, answers all your questions from A to Z. In fact, there's a link in the description below if you're looking to become an expert. Now, if you're somebody sitting on the sidelines thinking that you want to rent, that renting is the better option right now versus buying, do me a favor and watch this video here.